Sweet.
We
Okay.
are live. I'm going to go and tell Twitter. Hang on.
This is great. I love
All
this
right.
community. Yeah,
It's pretty wild, isn't it?
it's super
It's,
cool.
it's pretty great. So let's see here. Let's let some people kind of come in here because people are starting to flood in. I probably should have waited to start recording this once people started flooding in here, but
Oh man, something happened with your blab tweet. It went to blab undefined.
Oh, wait, what do you mean?
If you look at your tweet, it's blab.im/undefined. Somehow the wrong
Interesting.
yeah, like it didn't blab the correct link.
Didn't blab the correct link. Okay.
Like it didn't actually.
Yeah, I'm checking it right now here.
Yeah,
Huh. Weird.
I
Well, I'm
guess
gonna delete that.
the correct link
And
/LS3GSW.
yeah, I'm just gonna retweet yours
All
actually.
right.
Um, now I'm gonna see if I move over here, there's more light. Look at that. We got some more light. Okay. Sweet. All right. Let's see here. We got some people coming in. All right. Well, you want to just get started?
Totally.
All right.
I can't
Good
give
to see you.
myself props, by the way.
No, you can't. I'll give you some props. So, how's it going, man?
Good. I'm good. Yeah, it was a good day. Nothing crazy. How
So
about you?
I have to
Yeah.
apologize because I screwed up. We had a show planned at 3, and I've been heads down all day and just did not keep track of time. And then I had a board meeting. I'm doing this. I'm on the board of there's a company called Spikeball. You know Spikeball?
I feel like I've heard of it. But I don't know why. Were they
They
in
were on,
Shark Tank?
yeah, they were on Shark Tank.
I do know Spikeball.
Yeah, they're a cool company. They're based here in Chicago. Cool guys. I've known the guy for a few years, and this is before they went on Shark Tank. He asked me. I knew they were
Awesome.
going to be on, but he's just looking to build a little advisory board. And so I said, yeah, I'd be happy to help. So I had that today too, and it kind of messed up my schedule after the 3 o'clock thing. So I'm glad you could join me at 9 tonight.
Yeah, totally. Anytime. It's totally cool. That's funny about Spikeball.
Yeah, they're doing. They got a great little business going. It's pretty exciting actually. But let's. I'm looking back at our topics for the day in Basecamp here. You want to start with something?
Yeah, totally. So this was just something. This was one of those lessons that I've learned recently, and it's funny because it's a lesson like I keep learning just over and over and over again. And it's this lesson about plan B, and it's like this lesson about having a plan B and having to fall back to a plan B. I touched on this briefly in a previous episode we've done in Work in Progress, and it's finally it's shaken out. It's turned out good, like I was hoping it would. We basically were in this situation where for a lot of for people who are in this who are new to the show that we've been doing. I run High Rise. High Rise was a product 37 Signals made, Jason made, and we spun it off. We spun it off just a little over a year ago as a separate company. And, there's a couple tasks that I have as running High Rise. One is to take ownership of it, to kind of separate it out from Basecamp, from their billing system, from their login systems, from their infrastructure. But another huge part of that is improving the product while we do that. Like we can't just not make any improvements. So it's a juggling act of kind of doing both of these things. And so we try and do things that aren't going to take major infrastructure changes because we have to already kind of worry about infrastructure changes. So we don't want to have a lot of these engineering projects. Well, when we get to things that we want to improve in the product, they often involve things that at first glance are going to be like really these things that are going to require heavy lifting, heavy engineering challenges. One of them was recently search. there's only one kind of search in the original high-rise. It's relevancy search. You search for a term, and it's the things you get up at the top are the things that the search engine, the search algorithm thinks are the most important, or found the most times. And people have been using high-rise now since like 2007. They have thousands upon thousands, tens of thousands of emails and notes, even more, hundreds of thousands of notes. And when they look for something and because of this relevancy search, they'll look for something that someone said recently, and they can't find it because they find notes that are from like 2006, 2007. And so it's hard for people to find stuff in high-rise. It's been a challenge. So we've wanted to improve this. And immediately right away, we're like, well, what can we do to do this? Well, we have to improve the search index. And when we start looking at that, we look at like, okay, well, we need to maybe upgrade, the engine that does our search. We need to, okay, well, that is on some old stuff. Well, that's going to be this huge infrastructure engineering challenge. And so we're like, oh man, we can't do it. It's going to be too hard. We have all these other things that we have to do with engineering. So we just stopped, and it was disappointing. It's like, well, we can't, this is people complain about this. This is a big thing that we'd like to improve, and we can't do it. And I gave up on it. I gave up on wanting to improve it. And then just one day, it just dawned on me. I just let my mind kind of wander again to this problem. There's got to be something else. Like, I really believe most things that I look at, that there's got to be a plan B. There's got to be at least even a plan B. There's probably plan C, plan D, plan E too. But there's got to be another option than just huge infrastructure engineering challenge. And so as I started thinking about that, I was like, no, there's got to be something we can do. And so, I'm not going to get into engineering specifics about it, but like, we did find a way to use our current search engine that we have and then do a recency search so that people can find their notes that they've just had with clients recently and find a search term in it. And it took a little bit of, kind of what we've talked about before, spelunking in our code to see if we could do it. But I was able to kind of figure out we could do this in like 30 minutes, an hour, when I've like finally committed to coming up with a plan B. And this wasn't like plan B wasn't perfect. It would be ideal to do what we originally had planned, but like all of a sudden now it's working and people love having this feature. Again, it's not as perfect. It's a little bit slower than we want it to be, but it works. And that's like all that really counts right now. So yeah, that's like something that I keep learning. Like, we were able to solve this thing not perfectly, but there was like some negotiation and compromises that we were able to make and get something out the door like really fast to solve people's problems. And they're thrilled with it.
Yeah, this happens often for us too. So I'll pitch an idea, for example, to David. I'll have some product idea or an interface design idea or some feature, something, some idea. And he'll come back at me with a negotiation, which is basically, okay, good idea or bad idea, but let's call it good idea for a second. Good idea. This will take about 6-7 days, a week's worth of work, or I can do it this way in about 3 hours. Now, when you do it the 3-hour way, you're going to lose this, this, and this. What do you think? And sometimes I'll say, well, I think that the other way was better. I know it's going to take a week, but I think it's worth it. And other times I'll say, you know what? Why don't we start with the simple version and see how far that gets us? And when we do that, we often find that it gets us pretty damn far, pretty close to where we want to be, 80%, 90% of the way there. And sometimes that extra 10% does matter, but a lot of times it doesn't. And or the additional 6 days you would have spent building the thing out the first way, you could spend those 6 days then refining the simpler version perhaps and finding out that actually after you begin to use it, you learn new things that you wouldn't have picked up on had you not used it at all. And that's one of the real advantages. I mean, the advantage of just blazing something quickly and seeing where you go with it, because nothing guides you better than reality. You can dream up all the stuff and assume it's going to be hard, and it all might be hard, but your best bet is to make something really quick and easy, and then go from there and see where it goes. So we do that all the time. We've also had situations where we just assumed stuff would be hard. You just like assume this is going to be hard, and then what we typically do there is I'll often ask someone else to do it. So like if someone's decided it's going to be hard, we'll be like, well, let me see what George could do with it. And he hasn't decided it's going to be hard yet. But once you've decided it's going to be hard, it's really easy to change. It's hard to change your mind. Your frame of mind is already like, this is going to be a hard engineering problem. I don't feel like one of those right now. But to someone else, they might not go into it with that expectation and might just be able to solve it and see it in a different way. So I think it's really valuable to be able to pass hard problems around until maybe someone can find an easy solution to it. And then, of course, sometimes it just isn't easy, and you do have to do the hard work.
Right.
But
and like you said, like the easy way is like, or the plan B, the thing that you were kind of hoping the compromise solution is often like a really good starting point. Like you said, like this thing that we're doing with search is actually a really good thing to kind of even learn. Do people use it? Do people want it? And if they like it, we could probably improve it a great deal by doing like the extra effort. And now we know even more going into it to make it better. Like this is like, we're having the same thing with like, we want to, there's this new bulk email feature we want to do. But we don't want to let new accounts, free accounts, just have willy-nilly access for this thing. So we want to make sure people kind of upgrade, with high-rise, there's like, you can put your credit card in, but we don't charge you. There's that 30-day free trial period. Well, that would open up a pretty crazy little hole of people just being able to like sign up like crazy, use our bulk email feature like crazy, which we have to pay money, like extra resources to kind of pay for. And then people would just cancel the free trial. That would probably be a cost that we don't want to stomach. Maybe, like it's still something we're figuring out, but so we want to probably encourage people to kind of upgrade past the trial if they really want this feature. But we don't have API access to accomplish this billing feat at the moment because of the way, how we interact with the Basecamp 37 Signals billing system right now. So we need a plan B again. So I'm figuring out plan B, and it might just be this manual system where if you're a new account and you want access to this feature, you have to submit a request that basically just is going to ping us so we can do this thing on the back end manually, which we can do. We can access it. We just can't access it from an API right now. But as I'm thinking about this, I'm like, this is probably even a better idea than before. Now we can review the account right now. We can make sure, like, this account looks pretty solid before we let people have full access to this bulk email system. And it's faster. Like we're going to have this done a lot quicker. And it's less risk. I mean, it's less risky this way. So it's like, at first it looked like this big challenge and I was like a little upset by it, but now it's just like, man, this is actually probably the way to go.
The other thing about that too is that, oh man, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I hate it when that happens.
Nighttime episode.
Yeah, no. Oh, no, it's old person episode. Oh man, I can't remember what I was going to say now. Oh yes, I do remember. So the whole idea about actually forcing a human interaction, actually, I think is a good idea most of the time. So in the software world, we're often like trying to get rid of human interactions, and we're trying to like make everything self-service and push things away. We built a product called Know Your Company, which was required. First of all, in order for anyone to even sign up for Know Your Company, so just to give people an idea, Know Your Company is a tool for business owners who've grown to the size. I think it's about 30 people, where it's harder to get to know what's on everyone's mind at your own company. You're often the last to know. That's just what ends up happening once you get a company of about 30 people or so.
Yeah.
And so we built this tool to help CEOs, built it for me originally, to get to know what's on my company's mind, my employees' minds. And in order to even buy the product, the only way to even buy the product was for me to give you a personal 30-minute tour. So you had to commit to a 30-minute tour. I had to commit to a 30-minute tour. I got to meet you. We did it via Skype or Hangouts, whatever. I got to meet you. You got to meet me. We got to talk about your problems. I got to share my problem with you, why I built the product in the first place. And then we get to go back and forth and ask some questions and answer some questions and rap. We're both business owners, so we got to rap a little bit too, which was really fun. And then it's a good way for me to get to know, is this product actually good for this person? And for some of the demos I did, I realized it just wasn't. They had problems I couldn't solve, and their company was a little bit too big for the product. And I just let them know at the end, after going through this with you and hearing your concerns, I just don't think this is the right tool for you, unfortunately. I'd love to sell it to you, but I don't want to sell you something that doesn't fit.
Yeah.
My point is, and that's not exactly what you were doing here, but the point is that when we open ourselves up to those moments, we actually create really nice value for people, and people feel like the product's actually a better fit, or it's very clear that it's not, but they get to know. Another example of this really quick is when I was we were building our support section used to like really discourage reaching out to our customer support team. We're always like, check the FAQs first, check the help section first, do this first, do this first, do this first, do this first, and then only if you can't find your answer, talk to us. And we have such an amazing support group. Like, I want people to talk to our support group. Our support group is some of the best people we have in the company. And like, the more interactions people have with these folks, the better off everybody is. And so we kind of encourage people to reach out to our support team and send a ticket in, and so we can get back to them and have an actual conversation versus pushing everything off to self-service. So these are really interesting moments where you say, you know what, look, I'm going to have someone actually request this feature, and I'm going to have to vet them a little bit. Maybe you have to shoot them an email and ask them why they're going to be using it or whatever. But I bet you that you're going to learn something and they're going to learn something. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a better move.
Yeah. When we started Inkling in 2006, like I don't know, I came from heavy-handed consulting. I used to work at Accenture, and it was like, you know, everything was like very laborious to kind of get through. And so I was very allergic to like, you know, I wanted everything to be self-service, and I wanted to like create software as a service where people could just put in a credit card. And it seemed nice because I could get away from, you know, contracts and like lengthy negotiations. But like, I feel like I basically just like jerked too much in that direction in many ways. Cause like when we started doing Inkling, we started finding like, well, we had a lot of clients that still wanted these conversations and assigned contracts. And some of those conversations, like I resisted doing them, and like, but man, some of them were awesome. Like I remember this one we even had to travel for, and I was like, oh my God, I'm wasting so much time. I could be working on the product. Instead, I'm flying out to California. I think this was with like Cisco. We got to talk to some guys at Cisco. And so we go talk to Cisco, but like in the course of this meeting, they start talking about like, well, can you do this? And we start like riffing on ideas like, oh, why do you need this? And it was this like really high bandwidth conversation that I wouldn't have had like it just been software as a service, had it just been some conversation, probably even over email. But I was able to kind of like ask them questions that, you know, like we could really dig into, and then, you know, it helped improve the product. And it's funny. It's funny that like we make the software and we enjoy taking credit cards and doing it scales really well, but we lose something from those human elements. So I agree with you. I feel like we need to find even more opportunities to like bring a little bit more manual intervention in, just to force ourselves to be in some more human moments of these like buying decisions.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing. It's look, you don't have to do it forever.
No, yeah.
You can even do it for 2 weeks and just like force yourself to talk to customers this way. It's a really valuable thing to do. So I'm a fan, definitely a fan of that approach. Something I had on my list of things to talk about tonight was, let's see. Actually, that topic's not so great. What about, since we're on Blab, like I feel like we should take advantage of Blab. Anyone have any questions out there? Because we can pull people in, or we can just answer some questions. I think if you do it, is it /Q or something? Or I think it's /Q before what you write, and it'll be posted as a question. So if anyone has any questions about this stuff, we've been talking about product decisions and marketing ideas, and product design and engineering and product management and that kind of stuff. Those are the topics we're sort of into these days. So if anyone has any questions, happy to take some of those. In the meantime, I was thinking that about this. We've been giving this demo of this new Basecamp 3 to people lately, and one thing that's been coming up a lot, which is interesting, is this reaction that, wow, Basecamp does a lot of stuff now, and I'm not sure how to take that. So I've been sort of digging in, like, well, what do you mean? And in like trying to get into what that actually means. What are the details of that statement? Is it that it does too much? Is it that it does a lot? Great, this is awesome. It does a lot. Like it's going to replace 2 other products I use. Or is it it's confusing and complicated? And the point is that I think it's very important to go a couple steps deeper whenever you hear feedback from people. It's easy just to take feedback and go, oh, I have like 7 people told me it does too much or it does a lot or whatever. And then you can draw your own conclusions from that. But those 7 people may have meant very different things. So it's important to kind of really dig in and understand what that means to somebody. And I don't have the answers for that particular question necessarily, but as I've been digging in with people when they mention that, I'm learning different things that I wouldn't have gotten if I just had accepted that answer as a surface level answer. It's similar to like if you ever do an interview, someone sends you questions to do an interview. Like they set up 10 questions and you answer them and then you submit them. That interview is not going to be as good as if someone asks one question, you respond, and then they respond with another question based on your answer for the first one. Like if you can get to 10 questions that way, those questions are going to be more interesting because they're going to play off your answers and they're not going to be these silos. They're actually going to be a continuum. And that's what's really cool about talking to customers about like their feedback. It's not just listening to something and saying, oh, I know what that means. It's what do you mean? And going deeper in that way. So that's something I think is a really good thing to experience, is just kind of asking people why. What do you mean by that? And that's actually the best way to get it, is what do you mean by that? And then they'll often go in a bunch of different directions you never would have assumed. So
yeah. Toyota, I assume, have you seen Toyota's 5 Whys?
I have. Yeah, I have.
It's if people haven't read this before, it's simple, and it's really just kind of like a simple, like, I don't know, rule of thumb to kind of remember like what exactly you're talking about. But it's like, I don't know, Toyota's famous for all their engineering systems and, doing some really innovative things with getting stuff, engineered and done efficiently. Well, they have this like 5 Whys, where they encourage everybody to ask why like 5 times. Like, if something's wrong, you ask why. Like, why is it broken? Like, or if people come in and the problem is like the tires. We keep having a problem with like the tires. The lifetime of a tire isn't working well. People keep coming in with flat tires. Well, why? And keep going down that path, and you start to come up with like really interesting and much deeper things than like you get on the surface. And it's just a way of codifying, I think, what you're saying, which is like, yeah, like don't just take this thing at like surface value, but dig in, ask why over and over and over again. Not annoyingly, but like, don't just take the surface answer, because obviously your customer hasn't thought about this very deeply. Probably it's a lot of like really knee-jerk reactions. Hey, I saw it for the first time. Here's what I think. And it's our responsibility to obviously like chew into that and get much more detail out of it.
I want to jump over to questions someone has here. Jeremy's asking any general advice on MVP, minimum viable product. I've never liked that term, to be honest. I feel like viable is like, what does that mean? Viable is way too, like, to me, it's about minimum useful product, or like, it's really about what does this thing have to do to be useful, not to be viable. I don't really, because I think viable is it's too generic. It doesn't really suggest enough. It's like viable what? As a business, viable as a product, viable as a like viable for what? But like if it's, I think you want to just get to useful. And so that's kind of how I like to think about that particular term. I don't know, Nathan, if you have any thoughts on that term. I just hear it tossed around a lot. And I don't think people define viability very much. So they just kind of make something small. And they think that if it's small, it's the MVP. But it's not about small. It's not about like quick either necessarily. What's your take on that? You have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of allergic to things that become too trendy anyway. So like when MVP has become this like thing that like just keeps getting rattled off. The word pivot, I can't stand either. And it's not a bad concept necessarily, that word, that the ability to kind of pivot on an idea. But when I think, so I don't even really, I hate talking about MVP, because there's a lot of people in the world that treat an MVP as this, as sometimes just a sign-up form on a website. And I've never been a huge fan of just sign-up forms providing any kind of signal that like that people want your product. I mean, I've done this before. I've had sign-up forms like, hey, are you interested in this thing? And sure, they're interested in like a sentence you write or a headline you have about a launch because it's mysterious, but you still have to like do the work to create a product. And after you do that, like that sign-up form really doesn't improve much, really. But people, put a lot of faith in a sign-up form. But yeah, so I don't know. So some interesting things, like when it comes to things like minimal viable products, like again, like, I don't know. I tend to think of, though, what is the simplest thing that I can do that like provides any value? A friend of mine actually came to me like a couple weeks ago, and he was talking to me about an idea he had for a product. And he was kind of bummed because he, really smart dude, has his MBA, really smart business mind. He's got a lot of great ideas. He's not he's not a technologist. He can't build the thing that he wants. And he was kind of stressing out about this, trying to find a technical co-founder and everything else. When we talked, though, it was like, dude, I think you could pull off what you're talking about without even building anything. Like, you're talking about doing X, Y, Z. Like, you're talking about going after this target customer and providing some kind of value. I think you could do this with WordPress. I think you could do this with a Woofu form. You could set up Shopify for this person. There's all these things that you can do that provide all this value to this person to set them up. And like, I don't know, that's what I feel like I take away from doing something minimum. Like, what is your idea? You don't need any technology. You don't need probably have to build anything. Become a consultant and go do that thing for this person. That's a product doing that service for this person. So I don't know. There's a lot of loaded things in MVP that I don't think make any sense. It doesn't even have to be a product.
Yep. There was in Chicago, there's a school called the Starter League. Starter School, they also call it. And one of the students built she built a really cool thing, which is like a way to help you select a gift for somebody who you don't know what to get them. And she kind of built this system, but it turns out the software wasn't really the valuable part. The valuable part was figuring out how to help someone pick a proper gift. And she was actually better off just doing that as a consultant, like you said. But she went through the process to make a product because that's what she thought she had to do. But really all she had to do was call somebody on the phone and talk to them. And it turns out that you can make better choices that way. And building all the software around this wasn't actually getting to the answer anyway. And so she had to talk to people anyway and this whole thing. So I think you're totally right. We don't always have to build. You don't have to build anything sometimes. You just have to do stuff with existing tools that you already have. A lot of opportunities there. We got started a little bit late, so we'll give maybe another question or two here.
Cool.
Let's see here. You want to take one?
Maybe. Let me, I don't even know where we're at here. Do you?
Just go in the sidebar. If you go to questions, you actually filter some out, but you can also just look at all.
Yeah. So, Amrit, Chandra, do you involve customers in the prototyping phase of product development, or just before you decide what you are building and after you have built it? I don't know. I guess it's some of both. And I don't know. We do some of both, especially at High Rise. Like, I feel like some of the new stuff that we do really comes from our own personal needs. I mean, we do. I believe, and I've written about this and I keep writing about this, but like, I don't believe we can make truly the best thing that we can make unless we like really understand and can empathize with the problems that like our customers have. So like, we really need to experience these problems ourselves. And so a lot of the new stuff that we're building like comes from really personal needs that we have for the tool, that we need the tool to support our own customers, to communicate with our own customers. That being said, there's stuff that we do change that customers have already been using and are going to tweak their workflow. Like, we just did a bunch of user testing where we wanted to change how we wanted to improve the import process. Where people were getting confused. We kept getting all these support requests about the import process. And so we went out, we interviewed a bunch of people. We sent out a survey and just asked people, hey, would you be interested in doing this user testing with us? And we got a ton of great feedback. We showed them some mock-ups and we showed them some kind of mock HTML, and they gave us some great feedback. Like, they didn't really understand why this radio button was here. So it's a balance. Like, the real new stuff, the real new kind of product design that we're doing, where we're introducing kind of new concepts, new features, a lot of that stuff, like, we just start making it, see if we can use it ourselves. The stuff where we're kind of like really trying to refine and polish, we think people are already confused about it, and we've gotten signal that they're confused about it. That's when we start kind of delving into like user testing and involving people in kind of where we're designing. I don't know. That's what we do.
Yeah, we typically don't bring in customers during prototyping, but prototypes will often come from an insight that we gain from talking to somebody, or our own struggles with something or something like that. So they're involved indirectly in that way, in that their ideas are often the genesis of the work that we're doing, or our ideas are an idea comes from somewhere. Excuse me. And then we'll build something, and then we'll often show it to some people. If it's a full product, like we're doing now with Basecamp 3, we're showing it to beta testers, and they're going to use it before we launch it publicly. But if it's an individual feature, I don't really. We don't typically spend a lot of time in a sort of pre-release phase with customers, because I feel like it could cause us to just wander for a while. I think it's sort of, my feeling in general is that it's best to kind of, if you're going to solve, if you're even making the thing, you hopefully have a good sense of why you're making it in the first place. So like, if you're just guessing, you're probably kind of screwed anyway. But if you have a good sense of why you're building it in the first place, you should just kind of go with that and then release it, because nothing is truer than putting something on the market and seeing how people respond to it. Beta testers, there's a lot of people, you ask people to beta test things. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm so pumped to beta test things. I want to beta test this. I want to beta test that. And then it ends up that like very few people have the time to do it, or they don't want to switch over to the beta server to do it. Or like, there's all these things that like actually go into it. And they're all like, I'm using this on a real project. I don't want to like screw up. I don't want to like look bad in front of someone else. So I don't want to use something that may not work. The only time it's ever actually real is when it's actually real. And so I think you design it because you have an idea in mind that comes from somewhere. You do your best work on it, the best you can, and then you put it out there. And if it needs to be adjusted after that, then you adjust it after that. But if you want actually true, real world, actual feedback on something, the only way I found to ever get that is to just launch the thing, is to put it out there. So that's my general feeling on that. We've tried other things. We've tried to involve people along the way. It's hard to get people who are fully dedicated to actually being a beta tester, truly. It's actually like almost a full-time job in some sense, to really go through something in detail and write up notes in detail. And not many people are really into that. And I get that. People would prefer to use, like, they want to use something early because it's fun to use early, but they don't actually want to put the work in to be a thorough beta tester. So you're better off just launching it and seeing what happens at that point.
Yeah. And I also feel like you're saying, like, a lot of this, even user testing, is just so fake. Like, we're watching users kind of like look at this thing for the first time, but like, that's not real. They don't use this thing always at the first time. Like, people use software and it's like a whole cycle of like, okay, this is how they use it the first time, but then they come back to it a week later and it's different. They know how to use it differently, and then a month later they use it differently. Like, you can't watch all of those moments in this one-hour phone call you have with people. And so, yeah, I agree. I'm a much bigger fan of just doing it and putting it out there, and seeing what happens.
Yeah, I just feel like reality has a way of actually telling you the truth. It's the only thing that can actually tell you the truth. Yeah. Everything else is sort of simulating the truth, and you might as well get to the truth. If you really care, you got to get to the truth. And I think the sooner you get to that, the better. And if you just kind of stumble along for weeks and weeks, letting like 3 people try and use it, it doesn't really get you anywhere. So anyway,
cool.
Well, looks like we're out of time for the day.
That we should call it. So everyone, thank you for watching this. We do a lot of these. We do Blab. We do some Google Hangouts. There's really no really good place to post kind of our stuff, like our YouTube channel and stuff in here, is there? I guess we could post in the chat over here.
So if you go to YouTube and you go even to Google and you search for Work in Progress YouTube, I believe that we come up somewhere. Let's just pop it in the chat. Actually, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We're gonna get yesterday's show up on YouTube. Finally figured out how to get that rolling from Blab. So thanks again to Blab for making that possible, at least. And we got that figured out now. So I'm going to pop that up, and I'll pop the show up too. And we will be back soon. So thanks again for everyone watching us. I know it's a late night. Thanks for chiming in, joining in late at night on short notice.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Say hi on Twitter too.
Yeah,
would be happy to meet you. Have a great night.
Awesome. Later on.
Bye.
Bye.